friends. Welcome back to the Encouragement Experiment. I'm Michael, and honestly, it feels so good to be back. I started this podcast a while ago, but as you would know, life gets busy, things shifted, and I had to end up just taking some time away from it. But over the past several weeks, I kept feeling this pull to come back and start having these conversations again. Honest conversations, encouraging conversations, conversations about things a lot of us carry quietly. And honestly, that's really the heart behind this whole experiment. The name Encouragement Experiment actually comes from Hebrews chapter 3, verse 13. And that says, but encourage each other daily while it is still called today, so none of you is hardened by sin's deception. I absolutely love that verse. I'm an encourager. It's one of the gifts I have, exhortation. And I love that verse because it reminds us that encouragement is not just something nice we do occasionally. It's absolutely necessary because life has a way of wearing people down. Fear wears people down. Disappointment wears people down. Insecurity wears people down. And sometimes people are carrying battles internally that nobody can see. So the heart behind this podcast is simple: to encourage people, to point people back to the truth, to remind people that you're not alone in what you're carrying. And that's actually what led to this series. Recently, I was in a life group conversation and I brought up insecurity in my own life, just being honest about some of the internal pressure, overthinking, and the feeling of, sometimes not being enough. And what surprised me is how quickly several other people in the group started opening up and saying that they've struggled themselves with exactly the same thing. I mean, different personalities, different backgrounds, different seasons of life, but underneath it all was still this common thread, this common struggle with insecurity. Some talked about comparison, some talked about, fear of failure, some talked about constantly wondering what people thought about them. Some people talked about never feeling confident, even when things were going well. And I remember leaving that night and leaving that conversation and realizing that a lot of people are struggling with insecurity than we probably realize. Most people just don't talk about it openly. So over the next few episodes, this is how we're going to come back to the encouragement experiment. Because over the next couple episodes, we're going to have honest conversations about insecurity, what it sounds like, where it comes from, how it affects our lives and relationships, and most importantly, what God says about it. Because here's the truth. Insecurity is loud. It talks constantly. And if we're not careful, we start believing everything it says. Maybe you know the voice. You're not good enough. You're falling behind. You'll never measure up. You'll have to prove yourself. If people really knew you, they wouldn't accept you. See, for some people, insecurity is obvious. For others, it hides behind perfectionism, overworking, people-pleasing, control. Oh, I like control. Even constant comparison, maybe. Overthinking every conversation, needing reassurance all the time. And the difficult thing is insecurity rarely announces itself. It usually disguises itself as protection, but eventually it becomes exhausting. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming insecurity only belongs to weak people. That's not true at all. Some of the most successful people in the world are deeply insecure. Some of the loudest people are insecure. Some of the highest achievers are insecure. Some of people look incredibly confident on the outside, yet quietly battling insecurity every single day. Do you find yourself in that group? Because insecurity is not always about what's happening around us. A lot of times it's about the voice we've agreed with internally. And that's why this matters spiritually. See, listen, Romans 12:2 says, don't be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice where transformation starts, the mind. The battle is not just external, it's internal. And insecurity has a way of shaping the way we see ourselves, the way we see other people, our relationships, our calling, and even God himself. I mean, it makes us shrink back. It makes us defensive. It makes us feel like we constantly have to prove something. But one thing I'm learning is just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it's true. Now, listen, that's important because some of us have listened to insecurity for so long that it feels normal. It feels factual. It actually feels like tangible reality, but feelings are not always the truth. John 8:32 says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. See, freedom starts when truth enters the conversation. Sometimes the first step toward freedom is simply recognizing the lie. Maybe the lie is, I'm not enough. Maybe it's, I'll never be accepted. Maybe it's, if I fail, I lose value. Maybe it's, I have to earn love, or I have to prove myself, or I have to keep up. But here's the truth. Listen closely. God never designed you to carry the weight of proving your worth. Oh my goodness. God never designed you to carry the weight of proving your own worth. Your identity, my identity, was never supposed to be built on performance, approval, or comparison. Listen, Timothy 1:7 says this, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power, of love, and of a sound mind or sound judgment. See, fear is so loud. Insecurity is so loud, but neither one gets the final say. And I think for a lot of us, the challenge is learning to stop agreeing with the wrong voice, because every voice you and I agree with eventually shapes our life and how we see it. If you constantly agree with insecurity, eventually you will live small. You'll hold back, you'll overthink, you'll constantly chase approval. But when you start agreeing with truth, something amazing begins to change and happen. Not overnight, not instantly, but slowly. Your thinking begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself only through fear. You stop living like you have something to prove. You stop letting insecurity narrate your life. And maybe that's where this episode starts for you today. Not with fixing everything. I would never think that. Not with pretending insecurity doesn't exist, but simply recognizing the voice and beginning to challenge it, because you cannot heal from a lie you still believe is true. As we wrap up today, I just want to encourage you with this thought. The presence of insecurity does not mean you are failing. It means there's an area of your life that still needs truth, healing, and surrender. And God is not intimidated by that process. He's patient with it. He's present in it, and he's still working in you and I. Thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me here today on the Encouragement Experiment. And remember this, you have nothing to prove. Your value was never given up for negotiation. I'll see you next time.